A poetic Nowruz celebrates spring and Persian New Year with Canadian contemporary poets. Sunday, March 14th from 4 to 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Organized by Ottawa Persian Radio Namaashoum. Hosted by Mansour, Noorbakhsh. A poetic Nowruz celebrates spring and Persian New Year with Canadian contemporary poets. Sunday, March 14th from 4 to 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Organized by Ottawa Persian Radio Namaashoum. Hosted by Mansour, Noorbakhsh.
I really appreciate your kind attention to what I'm doing with this program. But in fact, the greatness is belonging to these great poets and these great people, these great talents, these great hearts, which are joining us and helping us. Thank you so much. George Eliot Clark. George?
Oh, okay. Thank you so much for inviting me, Mansour. It's such a pleasure to be here and to share verse. So I'll be reading from this book. Let me get my advertising in. Yeah, there it is. Basically, rewrites of scripture. And so the poem I want to read is titled The Annunciation, and it's in the voice of Mary, the mother of Jesus, but it's fictitious, so I don't want anyone to be concerned about any supposed blasphemy. There's nothing blasphemous about this because it's just a work of poetic fiction, poetic license, poetic liberty. So here it is, The Annunciation, in the voice of Mary. The glamorous pour of pure brandy, Poire William, as scintillating as is dawn's brittle light, so slowly belittling night, I confirm as sacred as is black ink on the page, bright as black ice slicking asphalt. I was no mistress of distress that morning after a night of discordant torrents. Hadn't Mama Nature gotten drunk? A blast splat the atmosphere. Out of sunlight intertwisted with iron black smoke came into view. Out of a culture of ether, of turquoise and silver, the archangel Gabriel, his wings fussing rhythmically with vapors, his wings hovering the air as if wavering hooves. And I knelt by impulse on the rain-flayed stairs before the bright, fluxing corners of his wingtips, and I wished that pure whiskey had whisked away the mouth fuzz glotting my throat, that sudden woolly dust there, for I knew I should pray. It was a domestic genesis, a household odyssey, and I was the Eve or Helen to be stolen away. I could not credit myself as chosen. Worse, at any moment, a business of Romeos could come rollicking into, frolicking with my life with their rum-slicked raps and sass. News is always a debate between triumph and failure and half-measure alternatives. But I was to be impregnated if I agreed. Fluting from his throat that hollow bow, Gabriel's area divulged I'd suffer a variant of vampirism, as do virgins trawled by Max, say that my lover would not be unskilled at rapture. And then, as a butterfly shudders and rudders through air, the celestial feather wisps was gone, physique and pinions vanished, leaving a musky perfume. Because light toys with plays with perception. I wondered if I'd witnessed but a rainbow whirl, the skittish swirling of petals, for I could stalk no physical presence. Suddenly, the river flickered orange as twilight aged to dusk. The once spanking brand new sun was gone, but the light was a sprightly, spunking, dunking water with gold. It was what marriage feels like. It was what marriage feels like. I felt a prayer until new daybreak when dew elegizes the demise of night. Already in my womb, the labyrinth was achieving opulence, becoming ostentatious, for I could feel a second heart palpitate, titivating all my core, and the blessed shock was the same as when roots splinter the earth. Roma, Italia, 9th of November, 2019.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for the introduction. I'm Darcy Friesen-Hossack, and I am the author of a short story collection called Mennonites Don't Dance, which was shortlisted for the Commonwealth Writers' Prize. I am also the managing editor of the global online literary journal Word City Monthly, which is dedicated to inclusion, diversity, and peace. The poem I'm going to read today is called Poison, and it is about my own experience with the opioid crisis in Canada. You didn't need a poison apple, just your prescription pad, a pen, and your hand on the door. 2 milligrams Ativan, 14 milligrams Zopiclone, sweet to my brain like a bite of a golden delicious. Cyclobenzaprine, you wrote, softening my mind with your slices of ambrosia, tramadol and Lyrica chopped up and baked in the pie of my mind until the pharmacists know me by name. 800 milligrams Celebrex rots out my insides like the chewing of a worm. 72 milligrams Dilaudid, and then you write fentanyl, 25 micrograms per hour, which you give to me as a sticker, like the one on the skin of an empire, and I wear it until I'm sweetly compliant while people drop like windfalls on East Hastings. I sleep and I sleep while never at rest, until, dear doctor, because no one else will, I finally come to my rescue and kiss myself awake. Thank you.
Hi to everybody. I just want to dedicate these poems to Mansour and Mehdi for their poetry with no barriers. Thank you. Thank you very much. Illness from A Toast to Illness. You could be afraid to sit close to me, and I could be afraid to tell you a story. Gruesome reports of the innumerable tests, the gray and blood leaking details offered us like a smiling violet. Escapades from the accomplishment of science and cuisine, of Paris Expo and radioactive sugar. Lie close to me, my dominator, using war language and stats. I beg you to sleep with me, and let me kiss your eyes and your emotions. Keep them open for me, night and day. Suicides. There are 3 suicides. The traditional one that gives you relief, the one that is imposed, and one that is the homicide of the self. The third is the one that brings fear, because you keep toying with the idea of the tool that will end your days. It is a mess to choose. A friend tells me that she had to put her 2 cats to sleep. One was resentful and belligerent. She was not cooperating. The other one fell asleep in her arms after having cuddled gregariously. I'm confused, and I don't need a further option. Can I die when I don't know? When I don't think? Because this is what I've learned. There might be nobility in dying, in choosing death, but there is more deceit than anything else. We are forced to die. We are forced to put ourselves to sleep. Perhaps we'll have the privilege to not cooperate. Thank you.
Marty's Fennec, please.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. So my name is Martez Fennec, and I am the author of historical novels. My current trilogy is set in 16th century Malta and Istanbul, and it's the Siege of Malta trilogy. My poem is about a writer's block experience that I had, an extremely frustrating, debilitating experience that I had a few years ago when I was living in Singapore. And nothing could help me get the words down on the page until the smell of this beautiful flower came drifting across my face, and it changed everything. And so I will recite for you my poem, which is aptly titled Writer's Block. Tea leaves scattered, jasmine across the table, the scent of plumeria swirling, an open notebook, empty, a glint of sunlight, a blank page, old scars, bleeding. And that's my poem. It's short and sweet, unlike writer's block, which seems to last forever.
Josephine Lore.
Yes, thank
Could
you very much.
yes.
What an honor to be reading in such company. I'm going to be sharing a poem called I Find Myself, and it was published in January by Tiny Seeds Literary Journal in the United States. And the significance of this poem for me was it was the first poem that I wrote since the beginning of COVID, which in Calgary was a year ago yesterday for us. The first poem that I wrote that wasn't prompted, that had nothing to do with COVID, and I felt a sense of liberation and peace with this. Find myself. When I want to find myself, I lose myself in the thickest of thickets, past the stone around which water works its way, burbling, the tremble of silver gray wolf willow, the sweetness of Mayday in bloom. Gnarled fingers of ancient root grip dust brown ground. I close my eyes to see the tree beneath the tree, as wide and as deep as the tree we see above ground, its unspoken symmetry. I imagine the whisper of secrets, knowledge past in the silence below. Worms, creatures without skeleton or shell burrowed in blind earth. My eyes rest a moment upon a pair of waterfowl, the blue-winged teal with his crescent white face, his mate invisible, save for movement in winter-dead grasses and sludge. Watching their wordlessness becomes a meditation. I follow the path along the water, the song of thrush bringing me back to this moment. And I see my life in the bend of this river. Thank you.
Thank you so much for inviting me, and I am so happy to read with these wonderful poets today. I would like to read a poem that I actually just wrote this week for an event of mixed media for the Heliconian Club in Toronto. And it is a poem that sort of synthesizes my my interest in consciousness and physics as well. And it is about my mom, who I lost 3 years ago. It is called The Return. Can you hear me okay? You wait for me as I echo like a note reverberating from the center of my turns on a carnival ride. I am on a white paper mache gilded horse, circling the flowering wood springs of my years at the edge of time. At that merry-go-round, you stand eternal, a fixed star pattern of my seasons. Steadfast, you wait for me to alight from my manege of vagaries. I love you blindly, like protons and electrons love the nucleus of their atom, without knowing it. A magnetism of centrifugal force spinning coherently, returning constant on its swivel, out of simple physics, God particles. You and I, ghosts in the spin of our continuous return. We are the waves oscillating towards space, sunlight fading to starlight, and moons repeating in cycles, spirographing reality into a melody of our life's familiar refrain. Heartbeat, blood pulse, a carousel of pastel, paper pulp, childish vehicles, and horses prinked with gold and silver roses, curlicues and diamonds of broken mirror glass, reflecting the passage of our vanishing faces, our miraculous temporal voyage. Refrain. Tempus irreparabile fugit. Piano music trickles like water, liquid waves of sound, undulations of light fragments, escherscapes repeating back unto themselves before disaster, before the sparking spinning top of your molecules spun out unbound, and your form, that face of love and goodness, turned away from me into a black scarf of stars. Yet for a while we held that wheel of chance. They say that time is non-linear, but circular, a cochlear spiral. We return inescapably through memory to those circuits we incised with our living in the universe's vinyl long play. You will always be waiting for me like the sun. Look, I am a child showing off for you, riding that princess chariot in the peach organza dress you embroidered, and that green panolenchi hairband with the tiny flowers. You are still young, in your prime. I know nothing of what's to come ahead, assured only of this moment's truth. I will return here and to all the other points we carved in time. Maybe they are other worlds in superposition, other dimensions, heavens and dream worldscapes, spaces lit with love and light. A luna moth flutters a pale green carousel of diaphanous wings, feeds on sunshine, ever circling an invisible center. So joyful, so beautiful. She is so young, her life so brief. And that's my poem. Thank you so much for listening.
Norm Brown, not Greta Brown, and some of you I know. And again, thank you very much for asking me to join this. And it is intimidating. I love being among poets, but it's still intimidating. I have two poems. One's a downer, the other not so much. The first one, the poet reflects on aging. We grow older. We only grow older. Under the roll of sluggish stars, the once wide world grows smaller. The moonlit seas growl in over the shallows, where the wild waves grind to a shabby end. We are the bones in a shallow grave, the pockets of an old coat stuffed with pebbles, the pelt of winter rain on a still frozen river. We live on the sad side of memory, in the sweet ambush of time, the tender ache of things forgotten. With rub and shuffle, we clutch and gather, holding out how we hope to be remembered, while each new day's beginning is battered by a vague awareness of the end. And the second one, which I hope is a little more uplifting, the human soul needs to know that it is loved. Swirls and eddies, rivers of people, smart young women, perfumes of Zanzibar and airy promise, the evening commute, You and I sitting side by side in the crowded train. My hand on your thigh, casual, deliberate. Its warmth speaks to me of a blue silk dress, careless on the floor. Tells me what I need to know. Thank you.
Renee M. Sgroy, please.
Thank you so much, Mansour and Meiji. Thank you for having me. It's really a pleasure, and it's an honor to be with so many wonderful poets. So I'm going to read two poems. They're both quite short, and actually I had sent some to Mansour, but they're still in draft form, so I'm not reading those. But I'll read two. This one is a few years old, and it was republished in my book. I don't know if you can see that, but that came out last year. But this is called August on Her Hands. Red and running with juice, her body squat around a quickly filling bucket. Cradling another tomato, sharp slice and sniff, ripe or rotten test, bruised skins shimmering, a late summer sun. Tomorrow, the children will return to school their yellowed pencils, small hands carving 26 letters, erasing, scent of basil, tomato leaves, greenness etched on hands. And the second poem that I'll read, this was in Poetry Pause last year, and it's about spring, but it's a little depressing too, so sorry. Another spring. There are green buds on lilac through this window of rain, as birds flock to their landings on bare branches of spring. Spring lands in its timing, in its snow melts, in its vein, and clings green to branches against wind. There is always another spring, another season of worms, another shower of birds and grass in its greenness. It's the grass through the rain. Grass blankets your bed for new birds, for worms, for us. For there is always another spring, another season of rain. You left us vacant through this season of strain. And rain comes down hard on windows, comes down soft, spattered. All transitions are weary. All transitions return. Turning springs to falls, winters, turns us all to earth, to green blankets, spring worms. Thank you so much.
Everyone, Nowruz Mubarak to everyone. I am Kelly Kaur. I'm excited to share that my novel, Letters to Singapore, will be out next year. This poem is dedicated to my two real children who all came back or can't move out, and also dedicated to the 200 university students I teach at Mount Royal University and Athabasca University. Pandemic Nest. I am the unwitting collector of fragmented wings, tenderly swooped into my bottomless nest. Dust off the throbbing pain, dust off the looming trepidation, dust off the qualms and insecurities. In this world of mayhem, madness, and masks, I patiently erect new quarantine walls filled with quivering love. Transform this small sacred space, manufacture my waning strength, disguise my secret fears behind vibrant masks. My mother's metal flows wildly through my tentative veins.
Thank you so much for inviting me. This is a poem I dedicated to my city. This city wades into Ontario, and we, up to our ankles in waterweed, sift hope against grains of sand, skip stones into the oncoming rain shadow, breaking the lake. Look how fast waves curl, whiplash, how heavy weather makes us strangers, skating obliquely across each other's lives. Look how gulls gather sky, escalate up and out. Look how frost feathers forecast southern migrations as autumn shrugs, settles down to garrulity and old ghosts tumble out. Bruising hearts and homes and children could cry here. Who would notice? Look how hard we pretend to be other, how little kindnesses left unguarded cannot be seen through the glitter. But the days are softening, enough to forget time, forgive its passing. Look at what we no longer own, how little is left, as something inside, some muscle unclenches, opens our hearts, our hands, our eyes. Look how we leave no corner uncut, no road untrammeled, no bridge unshaken. Look how Toronto harbor fronts tomorrow, taking us along with it. Thank you.
It feels great to be sitting around with all the energy you are all creating today. I'm Saraswati. I'm going to read a poem, a memoir narrative story from my childhood. Just a small backstory about this is most of my childhood, the mostly talked, what was in the news or our huge part of our life was Maoist insurgency that was mostly, I should say, for 15 years, bombs and war and people being killed. And my dad was high school principal. And there were days that we were happy to see him come home alive, not from battle, but from his school. And being a poet and being able to write about this is, I can dump all that huge part of my life and bring about what was very minor. So here it goes. I shall remember. West Hill, basking in morning sun. Black boulders crown the crest, turn gold. Naked hatchlings in bright pinky skin inside the tree hollows. Black-beaked sparrows singing. Woodlands, forest, and meadows, aroma of green in the air. Grassland transformed into thousands of dewdrops. Dewdrops, sky resting on the droplets, droplets on the leaf blades, condensed and quiet, I shall remember. Climbing trees, texture of bark against my feet, bedula berries, forming a river of juice down my throat, marking memories of taste, I shall remember. Waiting for my father in the thickening evening, white shirt leaping up the elevation, his arrival, a script of song in my heart. I shall remember not the Holocaust, not the youth spent in the war. I shall remember my father turned off the radio and asked me to read stories. Instead, stories I shall remember. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I'm so happy to see everyone and also read with you all. And thank Mansour and Maddie for inviting me and organize this event. So yes, my name is Anna, and another people ask me, how did I choose Anna as my name? So now today I will share a poem about this story. And this poem was published in Queen's Quarterly and the 2021 spring issue. So the title is As Much as You Know. As much as you know. From the diary of Anne Frank. You remember few names, but long hiding days. Muffled silence, ghostly shades, suppressed within walls. At the age of 15, days abruptly ended. Such a brave witness. On the journey of Anna Karenina, You foretell. Lame was doomed. Beauty, brain, and grace could not offset the hierarchy of a husband's family name, a subject to fame, overshadowed sameness. With Queen Anne's life, you grasp name as the lost glory, beheaded by power's wings, the victim, the sinner, and the witch, all in one, darkened the Tower of London. Through Anna Akhmatova's voices, you catch names exiled into deserts of despair, desert of cruelty, desert of humanity. Names were pain, betrayers, baits, dictators, game cards. Name misplaced in her beloved country. Now you choose Anna as your name, an angel with a broken wing. When evils clog the sky, you neither pray for God's mercy nor ask for Mary's grace. Instead, you seek poetry at the soaring wings. Thank you.
And thank you so much for inviting me to be part of this celebration. And also thank you to Mehdi. We rely so much these days on our technical helpers. I'm reading from Surrey, BC, on the land of the Semiahmoo Nation. And my poem is actually set in autumn, but it is about spring. So it seemed somewhat appropriate for celebrating Nowruz. It's called Regenerative. Oh, you have to see my beautiful book cover. This is Practical Anxiety with the beautiful painting of the crow. Regenerative. Today I planted tulip bulbs, measuring as I dug, each an outspread hand apart, a palm's breadth deep of open earth to cover each oniony shape. So much implied in the planting of flowers, conviction that green tips will again suffice, survive winter's icy claw, the diggings of frantic squirrels, overcome the knotty roots of cedars gone astray. A belief that they will surface towards earliest warmth, that every holy bud will ripen as it rises, open its blushing mouth, sing praises to the light, reassure my waning faith in hope and second chances, reaffirm the promise of springtime. Thank you.
I'm very pleased to participate. Talking from Oakville, Ontario in Canada, where I live. And I've been writing for 40, 45 years. My latest book is How Criticism Mirrors the Self. It's all about me. But I'm very happy to contribute some poems. And I would just like to point out, I have a regular YouTube poetry show called Gord's Poetry Show. I'm up to edition number 80 at this point. They're all accessible online. And the latest one is a short homage to Rumi. So today I'm going to read a couple of short poems from the book Music Amuses, and reflections on how music plays a great part in our lives. Delight. Many styles of music can lift the ravaged heart to some heavenly home, invisibly humming far beyond the barking and howling of those many-voiced bruises, raking you over anger and desire. But today it's the rippling airs of the harp, which hoists the wounded me into some version of the safe haven, a bed of feathers, a leafy bower, a waterfall so ingenious, even elves emit amazement in daft peals of delight. The second poem is about hearing the music of conversation in a public place. It's called Music. When the music of conversation so intricately simmers that last night's choir convening its joy could be no more intense than this imminence so clear. Listen as they grow louder in your heart than your ear. Watch as these organs merge, helplessly making one the other. Thank you.
Sheila Tucker. Sheila, please.
Hello, everyone. And well, it's nice actually to relax and let someone else host a poetry event. I have my own too, poetry and prose, that I used to host monthly in a live studio. And of course, for the last year, I haven't been able to do that. But that is how I met Mansour. Thank you, Mansour, for inviting me. Thank you, Mehdi, for arranging this. And I'm really thrilled to be in such amazing company of all these poets. So thank you for that. I've just got one poem today, and I felt like reading something a little bit more whimsy, because most of my poetry recently has been rather serious. So this is a more whimsy one. It's called My Fantasy World. The reverie of many see them as rich, or they're action heroes, or they drive Aston Martins and wear Versace and Fabergé. Not me. In my little world, in the deep of my soul, a log cabin resides deep in a wood, embraced by a painted fence of oaken beams that are hugged by ivy and brambles and moss. A garden of blooms within, fragrance of lilac, English rose, violets emanating. And where fly magenta butterflies, robins and jays, and where swing invisible pixies on my cracked, quaint gate. At the far end of my lush, long lawn are a couple of kennels resembling little houses with miniature chimneys, where reside my darling pet dragons, my guard dragons. Anytime a mosquito hovers close, they zap it. Anytime a salesman enters my space, they scorch his pants. That's why their kennels have chimneys. They're for sleeping dragons that snort in their dreams. For even in my fantasy world, I'm practical to a fault. Thank you.
We finally meet. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, you are. You're welcome.
Reading from the new book, Simona, Celebration of the SPCA. Nothing like being taken away by a muse who's a cat. The first poem, The Meaning of Bliss, according to Simona. Bliss is bathing in a patch of sun spreading across the front room carpet, where often at night the humans suggest she goes to sleep. The other poem I wanted to share is, I've always been fascinated how cats are able to have a bath in bed. So this is a bath in bed. No debate, on who is master now. Nothing said with the human voice matters. She looks up dazed and unimpressed. She does not need water. She requires absolutely no soap. She makes it so clear any shampoo is a blend her coat will not wear. Nothing the tongue does is about allowing her to be unclean, is other than how she stays so queen-like, is how one part of her body knows, yet mysteriously when other parts of her body are ready to be cleaned, sought by teeth too, the positions she masters then so easily, so beautifully. Nothing the tongue seeks is exempt. Even the region under her tail, a bath taken in one of her many cozy, unpredictable beds, daily licking when noticed seems to last forever. Thank you.
Thank you, Mansour, and thank you, Mehdi, for having me here today. It's a joy to be here. It's a pleasure and just so lovely to be able to read with all of you today, in community with all of you. This poem is an invocation. Let there be calm to sustain us in the absence of touch, in the missing of grown children, in the complexity of the unknown. Let's hold tight in the face of fear, flight, fight. Let light shine through the darkness, bringing connection between bodies, minds, and souls. Let us look for love in the swell of the earth below the remaining snow. In the shape of the shadows the sun draws on its crystallized surface. In the brightest glow, there, that's where you'll see the lattice work of their arms, the well-formed facets of their faces, their hearts. They are our ambidextrous army of hope. Now, in a moment of absolute pleasure, watch as the sun drops through the clouds like a child's plaything, blurs the horizon with powerful light, and fills every cracked heart in her range. Listen to her voice. Courage, she says. Courage. Thank you.
A few words. It's certainly mutual. I applaud what you are doing, Mansour. And it was great to connect with you. Well, not too long ago. I don't usually do open mic, but I really want to feel even more a part of this. I've thoroughly enjoyed everyone's readings, and I'll offer this poem. It's going to be in my book forthcoming later this year, my new book, and it's a poem. It's kind of a reflective piece. About inclusiveness, although approaching it in a bit of a negative way. It's called Exchanging. When two quite different people clash in ignorance about each other, seeing next to nothing of the other in themselves, they both diminish. Without any giving way in patient openness with fair regard, they amplify a selfish fear and hurt and harden. then why demand that others take us merely as we presume to be, or that they mimic us? The more we refuse gifts of dissonance, the less we are. Thank you for inviting me in on this, Mansour.
Hello, how are you? Greetings from Africa. I was thinking that I was just going to be an audience, but I'm going to read just some few lines. Thank you, Mansour. Thank you, all friends from around the world and from Canada and the audience. It's wonderful to meet you here tonight. One of the pieces that I'm going to read is called Rendezvous of Poverty. It's dedicated to my rural villagers that I grew up with some time long back. See ideological tutors discarding their dignity in crack jugs. Comrades dying between rude stitches of hypocrisy and conspiracy. Fathers' fallacies chopped by cyberpunk slang. Mothers' cotton-tapped hair wisdom castrated by hard pliers of poverty. Liberation euphoria fading with the whirlwinds of corruption-sized cartels. Poverty thrashed mothers scratching lives out of the barren red clay earth. Daughters groaning under the grind of forced intercourse. Their sorrow-soaked lives trembling against nights of death. Owls singing verses, satirical verses of doom. Hyenas reading page poetry of gloom. Spoken word verses throbbing alongside the frail beat of bowl-shaped radios. Burning under the depressing charcoal of hot summers. Red glow of fire shimmered over the roasting earth like an expiring day. Shame-creased faces told rending stories of hunger. Rivers are motionless skeletons of dry sand. Droughts folded their legs onto the doorsteps of our land. Silence, graveyard silence. Silence of decaying mass, a dying mass. Rendezvous dredged by rituals of grief. My land is a sorry tale of sufferings. Its manhood deposited into hot pans of penury. Heartbeat of this land throbbed like the crack of a broken drumbeat. Crushed between hunger and disease. Mothers enduring under the weather like determined cassava roots. A country once a revolutionary granite, now exfoliated by political scars and moral sores. Superhuman autocracies spitting out rotten gospels of freedom. Their combat-clad, steel-booted greenhorns toy. Their hiking liberation dance jamming their ideological spoiled wind. Napoleonic kings of the land, sloshed by hypocritical revolutionary hymns. Indoctrinated by pseudo-socialistic political lingos. Nights of death pounced like stray baboons over village rendezvous. My mind suffers from nostalgia. A disease and ailment, a disease of memory. Memories of yesteryear. Memories of red dog and poor hearts sparting beautiful smoke. Aroma of fresh cow dung, dampness of fog under our cracked feet. Jiving and chattering of mother monkeys and cackling of wild hens. Domesticated dogs howling to shadows dancing under guise of the moonlight. Owls singing their baritone announcing the black veil of the sleeping earth. Doves hooting their morning poetry slam, celebrating the rays of a renewed day. The old rhythm of black villages have an ailment of nostalgia. A disease of memory, an ailment. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Lynn Tate, and I'm reading from Sarnia, Ontario. Thank you very much Mansour, that I'm able to see you guys. We go down we're in lockdown again tomorrow. So to see your faces means quite a lot to me. So, and this poem is sort of, might be considered a companion poem to Alan's. And it's called Let's All Collide. Don't you wish we could empty our thoughts into black holes, into a universal vacuum, the minuses of the day, the harmful, trashed and disorderly, swept up with the sad, the unapproachable, people crossing lines without shame, or wish upon all black holes, negative starlight imploding into something lovely and loud, quiet and joyful. Scientists announce there's been a black hole collision, another clashing of matter, antimatter, all lives matter. Why don't we all collide into one another, merge, one gigantic black hole belonging to a new class, one new class, one exotic, colorful object instead of separate elements pushing the universe apart. Thank you for allowing me to read. I appreciate that.
Well, thank you so much. I'm Eva Petropoulou-Yanou from Greece. I'm a children author for 18 years now, a awarded author and a poet. Unfortunately, my two guests, they had no video and they cannot hear nor microphone. We tried to do something, but they left both of them. So the journalist Jamil Turan Bazidi, he asked me to read something if I can read. Today, for the Kurds, Nowruz is not just a day of remembrance. It is also a day of protest and resistance against the occupation from which the Kurdish people continue to suffer. 50 million Kurds worldwide, the largest stateless population. We have the right to live free and independent in our country with an independent Kurdish state. Nowruz, Piroz, Nowruz, Piroz, to all of you. Jamil, Bazid, Turan. And now I will like to recite my poem. I write a little poem for Nowruz, that means new day, spring, new year. Nowruz, new rose, new day. Set a fire, my friend. Tell me the good news. Freedom has come. Freedom is near. Set the fire, my friend. Colorful, the spring is coming. Spring arrived. Set the fire, my friend. Come close. Tell me a song. My heart is beating. My heart is happy. Flowers and trees are growing and growing. New rose, Piroz. New rose, Piroz. Set the fire, my friend. Come, let's dance. The spring is near. Take my hand now and follow the rhythm of music. New rose, Piroz. New rose, Piroz. Thank you so much, all of you. Thank you, Mansour. Thank you. Thank you, Canada. I wish you the best, all of you. Be safe, be creative. Greetings from Greece. And it was amazing to have you, hear you, and be with you. It's my honor. Thank you so much.
I've got a short poem that I've never read anymore, and I'm wondering if it works. It's called Waking Up Alone. My poems are always depressing. I don't know what that means. I think I do know. Waking up alone, 11 minutes before the sun cracks open another day like an egg, and the dawn spills over the gray water world of, it doesn't have to be like this. Before the new day jabs you in the ribs, and the drowsy reach of sleep bleeds out like a final breath. 11 minutes before the sun shines on the orphaned expectations of a lost love.
I'm not sure if I have a good connection or not. I wanted to apologize for making a mess of this wonderful presentation. I wanted to thank Mansour and Mehdi again for putting this on, and I'm so happy to be a part of this. Next time I will use one of my Android devices that has internal data. I have a very good bandwidth routers. I should have just used one of them. Thank you all so much for sharing your poetry and your wonderful comments, and thank you for your support after my messed up presentation. And I really hope that we all get to continue this community and to keep working together and be able to see each other in person. And you know, so many great friends, longtime friends like Alan and Lynn and Pardes Chowdhury is here, Josie is here, and I really hope to see you all again in person sometime soon. Norman as well.
My poem is called Unmask Yourself. Unmask yourself and welcome love, because she is in the air. Unmask yourself for a second. Welcome passion, as you have the right to be happy. Every minute of your life, you have the right to be you. Unmask yourself, open your heart, prepare your soul for good and bad, as you are unique. Unmask yourself, have no fear. Love is present, forgive, forget, and treat all equally. Embrace your past, cherish your present. Prosperity now will be your future. Unmask yourself.
A poetic Nowruz celebrates spring and Persian New Year with Canadian contemporary poets. Sunday, March 14th from 4 to 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Organized by Ottawa Persian Radio Namaashoum. Hosted by Mansour, Noorbakhsh. A poetic Nowruz celebrates spring and Persian New Year with Canadian contemporary poets. Sunday, March 14th from 4 to 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Organized by Ottawa Persian Radio Namaashoum. Hosted by Mansour, Noorbakhsh.